hear something more about it. But Balaram, well, he likes to serve. And he likes to serve in ways that's pleasing to Krishna. And so within him, he has all rasas. At least he expands himself as a Nanga Manjari for Madhurya rasa. But within him, otherwise, parental affection, friendship, and servitorship, they're all within Balaram. And there were different verses illustrating this kind of love, that kind of love, this kind of rasa, that kind of rasa. And it was amazing. It was very, very detailed. And then I didn't discuss, but I'm just going to summarize for you. Rupa Goswami says the same thing. What we're reading from was Priti Sandarbha, and the Rupa Goswami writes the same in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Focus during a certain section goes to Balaram, and Balaram has all rasas, and sometimes. And that's the phrase that's used. The Sanskrit phrase is kvachit, sometimes. Meaning, it was a flow like a river, a non-stop flow. And sometimes you would see waves like this, and sometimes waves like that. The waves of rasa, bhakti rasa, waves. Okay, so reading from Canto 10, Chapter 15, Text 15. Some people like to follow along with their little telephone handheld device thing. 10, 15, 15. Sometimes, as the cowherd boys danced, sang, and moved about and playfully fought with each other, Krishna and Balaram, standing nearby, hand in hand, would glorify their friends' activities and laugh. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, there's no BBT purport. Short commentary. While laughing, Krishna and Balaram would glorify the cowherd boys who were dancing, singing, jumping, and fighting. Jiva Goswami writes, the two sometimes praised their cowherd friends who danced and sang attractively, while jumping high with various gestures, and also fought with each other out of attachment. They praised the boys who would sometimes sing, sometimes dance, sometimes fight. Sometimes the two would hold hands and laugh. Holding hands and laughing, they would praise the boys. They laughed and praised them, saying, your singing defeats that of the Gandharvas. Your dancing defeats that of Vidyadharas. You conquer the three worlds with your fighting. Actually, they were announcing the boys' glories. And Sanatan Goswami's commentary reads, the two boys would act together sometimes. Mittaha, in friendship, they would sometimes be together because of their attraction for each other. They glorified the other boys for their graceful movements. Sometimes they would say, that is most skillful. That is courageous. That is charming. They praised them while laughing out of joy at the dancing, etc. They laughed at the cowherd boys and praised them, saying, these boys are greater singers than the Gandharvas and more skillful at dancing than the Vidyadharas. They conquered the three worlds with their fighting. That was text 15. Now it's 10, 15, 16. Now, all this playfulness, where it's leading up to is they're going to come to the Talavan forest. And in that same mood, very similar, it was a younger age when they entered the Aghasura demon's mouth, but it's the same mood, just playful. And Krishna's enjoying, he's stimulating their love he knows exactly their happiness, and he's stimulating their happiness exactly in a way that makes them totally satisfied. Sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. BBT purport, short. The word Pallava Talpeshu implies that Lord Krishna expanded himself into many forms and lay down upon the many beds of twigs, leaves, and flowers hastily constructed by his enthusiastic cowherd friends. Jiva Goswami. In case you want to know what does Krishna do when he goes to the forest. It's a nice meditation. In concluding, there is description of resting pastimes. The great fortune of the cowherd friends is described in 3 verses. They would make beds of new shoots and as well soft petals and buds of flowers. There were many beds because all groups of 5 boys would team up to make separate beds. Pleased with the boys for making all the beds, by his inconceivable power, stimulated by his prema, he laid down in each bed in an expanded form, which no one else could see. There's this puzzling, not easy to understand, description of what Narada Muni saw when Krishna is expanding in Dwarka into so many palaces. Somehow he was able to see what others were not able to see, which means, in the morning Krishna would leave his palace and enter into a chariot, and all the Krishnas would merge into one Krishna to enter the Sridharma assembly, and he saw all that, and the others couldn't see it. I mean, what they did see, I don't know. How did they process what Krishna was doing if it wasn't seeing what he did? But in any case, specifically here, it's something like Lord Chaitanya's pastime in Rath Yatra, where he would expand himself and dance with each of the kirtan groups, and no one could see that except King Prataparudra. And he was understanding that he alone was able to see that. He was understanding that Lord Chaitanya was giving him that mercy. Or it's something like Brahma, our Lord Brahma, who went to Dwarka, saw the so many Brahmas that came from so many universes, but they couldn't see each other. So seeing Krishna, this is a text that's a message or a teaching that's repeated over and over. One cannot, even the demons that see Krishna cannot see Krishna without Krishna giving mercy to see him. That, that the manifest pastimes of Krishna is a merciful feature, just like a deity is a merciful feature. It's a manifestation of Krishna's mercy. So that some could, the 5 boys that could see Krishna lying, was because Krishna permitted them to see. But the other 5 boys and the number, going back to chapter 12, it's a really big number. It gives a number that's so many trillion times so many trillion cowherd boys. So the word that's used is asankhya. It means too many to count. Sankhya means count, and asankhya means you can't count. And then the acharyas say, how many zeros you add to make this, and how many zeros to make that, and when to get asankhya, it's so many trillion times so many trillion. It's too many. Anyway, Krishna manifested lots of Krishnas. He had lots of beds. It's just a pastime. It's just a pastime. He's giving them some service, and that's like really special. But not just, some service. It's a loving exchange in the highest of possible levels of loving exchange. This is an example of Isha Cheshtitaha, or powers of the Lord, mentioned in verse 19, which we haven't gotten to yet. Isha Cheshtita. Krishna would be fatigued after wrestling with the boys and would appear to be weak, Karshitaha, with beads of perspiration on his cheeks. This indicates the strength of the other boys. It is said, quote, the boys had similar qualities, character, age, actions, and dress. But we see that they had no inclination to kill demons themselves. His Leela Shakti, which aims for Krishna's pleasure, stopped such inclination in them, although everyone in Braja had great powers. Since he rested on their laps, it is understood they were somewhat older than he. They had made pillows for him, but he rejected these in favor of their laps. Pretty confidential, huh? Sanatana Goswami writes, and our acharyas drew a lot. Sanatana is the elder, so a lot was drawn from what he writes. But he also has some unique things commonly. In concluding, meaning this is text 16, there were clusters of verses on different topics, and so their playing together is now concluding. There is a description of resting pastimes. The great good fortune of the cowherd friends is described in 3 verses. Very similar. They would make beds of new shoots and as well soft petals and buds of flowers. But there were also beds only of shoots in order to offer them quickly. Because many boys made them quickly in the fever of prema, out of great respect, there were many beds. And the boys, being very expert, made separate beds, being affectionate to each boy. He lay down on each bed and expanded his form into many by his special powers, which each boy could not see. Even at this time he used his powers, for it is said in verse 20 that he performed acts as the Lord Isha Cheshtitaha. Paragraph. From exertions of wrestling, he had beads of perspiration like pearls on his cheeks and seemed to be tired, Karshitaha. The lap of Sridham, Radha's brother, became his pillow. Like Sridham, there are many others whose laps served as Krishna's pillow. Though he had a pillow on the bed, the pillow was taken away by the boys because he rejected that in order to enjoy the happiness of the lap of a boy. And now, similar to what we did last time, there's a Priti Sandarbha section, which gets really esoteric. This isn't as esoteric as the one we read the last time. But what he's doing, we know, in ISKCON, we know there's 3 divisions of the Vedas, the knowledge of the Vedas, Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And we know Prema Prayojana. Prema is the Prayojana, or the culmination of acting in one's relationship with Krishna. Jiva Goswami likes the word Priti. So instead of saying Prema, he uses Priti. We heard last time we read this Priti Sandarbha section, how he uses those terms. Prema is the mature stage, and within Prema there's different kinds of affection. which is Priti. And he went the whole long explanation of intensities and degrees and types and categories and who has them. And it's, it's like a bouquet of flowers of many different fragrances and colors, and he knows each one. And Krishna is enjoying in variegated ways, stimulating them in variegated ways, and he's really a connoisseur, Jiva Goswami. So this is Priti Sandarbha, Anuchhed 118. By the Lord's inconceivable potency, even mutually contradictory qualities reside within him. This is known on the authority of the scripture. Vedanta Sutra, it is said, Shrutes tu shabda mulatvat, or the nature of the Supreme is known only by the revelation of scripture. Some of these mutually contradictory features of the Lord are seen in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam 10:43-17. Krishna entering into Mathura. Specifically, he's entering into the wrestling arena. You know this verse? It's a very celebrated verse. Worth, learning it. 10:43-17. What it's describing is different persons. He's one Krishna, but different persons experienced him in different ways. And it starts with Chanur and Mustika. Some as a lightning bolt. The various groups of people in the arena regarded Krishna in different ways when he entered it with his elder brother. The wrestlers saw Krishna as a lightning bolt. The men of Mathura as the best of males. The women as Cupid personified. The cowherd men as their relative. The impious rulers as a chastiser. His parents as their child. The king of the Bhojas as death. The unintelligent as the Supreme Lord's universal form. The yogis as the absolute truth. And the Vrishnis as their supreme worshipable deity, unquote. So which one is right? They're all expressing how their experience of Krishna strikes their heart. So they're all right. He's all those things. So it's an example to illustrate contradictory qualities are resting within Krishna. In Bhakti Sandarbha, he goes through a whole thing. No, excuse me, Bhagavad Sandarbha. Whole long section. It's really interesting. Jiva Goswami. The inconceivable power of the Lord is seen in these words in Bhagavatam 10:7-7. Quote, this is now 10:7-7. Krishna is a little toddler. Lord Sri Krishna was lying down underneath the handcart in one corner of the courtyard. And although his little legs were as soft as leaves, when he struck the cart with his legs, it turned over violently and collapsed. The cart wasn't just a cart. It had, it's kind of like their storage compartment. People today have storage places. So, extra pots and this, when they have festivals, they put all that heavy, heavy stuff on the cart. He's lying underneath the cart. And he kicked his leg and everything went flying. The wheels separated from the axle. The hubs and spokes fell apart. And the pole of the hand cart broke. On the cart there were many utensils made of various metals, and all of them scattered hither and thither. The Lord's transcendental gentleness is described in these words. That's this verse, this evening's verse, 10, 15, 16. Sometimes, this is his gentleness. Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds and using a lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. The Supreme Lord's gentleness is also seen in the pastime where Goddess Lakshmi stopped him, that's Rukmini, stopped him from eating the inferior rice Sudama Vipra brought. Supreme Lord's gentleness. She reached over and checked his hand, and that was enough. He stopped. He who can, can KO Kamsa with one punch is very gentle. Lord Krishna's transcendental gentleness is also seen in these words of Srimad Bhagavatam 10:67. From her maidservant's hand, Goddess Rukmini took a yak-tail fan with a jeweled handle, and then she began to worship her master by fanning him. That's in the Sudama story also. The pastime, I read that. After saying this, the here we go. The pastime where Goddess Lakshmi stopped Lord Krishna from eating Sudama Vipra's rice is described in Canto 10, Chapter 81. Okay, the different pastime, Chapter 60. After saying this, the Supreme Lord ate one palmful and was about to eat a second when the devoted Goddess Rukmini took hold of his hand. In this pastime, Lord Krishna thought. How do you know what Krishna's thinking during this pastime? If you're Jiva Goswami, you know. You have to have good japa. Why should by my mercy, I have already given a little of my opulence to this devotee. Why should I continue to eat this inferior rice? Unquote. Even if he breaks the rules of religion, the Supreme Lord is never sinful or impious. This is seen in the following words of Chandogya 8:1-5. Ayam Atma Pahata Papma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always free from sin. This truth is also confirmed by the following words of Kurma Purana. Quote, even if he breaks the rules of religion, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always sinless, for he is the all-opulent Supreme Master. Paragraph. The idea that among the Supreme Lord's qualities there are some faults is refuted in the following passages of Bhagavatam 8:18-19. As she, the goddess of fortune, walked here and there, her ankle bells jingling softly, she appeared like a creeper of gold. While walking among the Gandharvas, Yakshas, Asuras, Siddhas, Charanas, and denizens of heaven, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, was scrutinizingly examining them, but could not find anyone naturally endowed with all good qualities. None of them was devoid of faults, and therefore she could not take shelter of any of them. So now, concluding, there's some nice passages from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. A little background in case someone is not familiar with what that is. Brihat Bhagavatamrita has been translated by Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, and when you have the 3-volume set, it's about that thick, sitting on your bookshelf. Each volume is this thick, and there's 3 volumes. And it's written by Sanatana Goswami, and there's part 1, part 2, and it's many things to say about it, but it's a commentary on the Bhagavatam, one way to describe what it is. And it's teaching the gradations of creation into the spiritual realm, and the topmost of the spiritual realm is Vrindavan, and the topmost of the Vrindavan is the gopis. And it's two different personalities who are sharing their realizations about these things. The first is Narada, and the second is that part 2 is really interesting. Gopakumar. Gopakumar is a Gopa. He's a cowherd boy, born in Vrindavan. And he receives mantra from a guru that's there in Vrindavan. And then his whole life completely changes. And he goes through different experiences, different planetary systems, comes back to go Vrindavan, goes back, he travels all over the place. And he doesn't have a vina. But he's on the power of his mantra. He's journeying here and there. So that's Brihat Bhagavatamrita. And many amazing details are narrated. Amazing details that are not found specifically in the Bhagavatam, but they're found from other scriptures, and it's part of his commentary, or his composition, and then he wrote a commentary on his composition, which Gopi has then summarized. It's amazing literature. Amazing literature. So there's these two passages are taken from that. It's speaking about this section that we just read, 10, 15, 16. Then in a choice grove, fragrant with sweet-smelling flowers and resonant with humming bees, Krishna rested a while on an excellent bed made of many new, soft leaves, sprouts, and flowers. The body of his dear friend Sridham provided a comfortable pillow, and countless friends served Krishna by expertly reciting prayers, singing sweetly, fanning him, dressing his hair, and massaging his lotus feet and hands. Now he's a 6-year-old boy. And they don't see him as the personality of Godhead. They just see him as their dear friend, and they love him. So here's the commentary. Krishna's flower bed was so fragrant that many bees were attracted to it. Krishna pleasantly rested on this very comfortable bed while his friends attended to him. Sri Badarayani, that's who's Badarayani? Shukadev. Sri Badarayani has described this scene in Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 15, 16 through 18. We just read 16, but there's 2 more. Sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of a cowherd friend as his pillow. 17. Some of the cowherd boys, who were all great souls, would then massage his lotus feet, and others, qualified by being free of all sins, would expertly fan him. And final, my dear king. Other boys would sing enchanting songs appropriate to the occasion, and their hearts would melt out of love for the Lord. Now, in the same chapter, but much later, similar mood, 3.7.1-123. Quote, this is Sanatana Goswami writing, sometimes Lord Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, and using the lap of cowherd friends as his pillow. Now this is about 50 verses later, and there's a lot of stuff in between, so it's a nice pastime Krishna's enjoying. In text 123 through 125, are from Bhagavatam 1:15, 10, 15, 16 through 18. Here Shukadeva Goswami describes some of the services the cowherd boys did for Krishna while he rested in the forest. These pastimes were a part of Krishna's Poganda Lila of tending his cows in Sri Vrindavan forest. Krishna would enjoy lying down to rest at various times, when fatigued after wrestling with his friends, for instance, and in various places, such as the cool, breezy shores of the Yamuna. To rest comfortably, he would choose the base of a kadamba, tamal, or other trees with ample shade. Anticipating Krishna's daily pastimes, the goddess Vrinda would have beds of leaves, flowers, and young soft twigs waiting at the bases of those trees. And sometimes Krishna's Gopa friends would arrange this bedding when they arrived. Even though Krishna lay down on only one bed at a time, Srila Shukadeva Goswami refers to the beds in the plural, either because many devotees were involved in making them, or simply out of great respect for the paraphernalia of Krishna's pastimes, or else because the cowherd boys would compete to make several different beds, and Krishna would expand his universal form to please all the boys by simultaneously laying down on each bed unseen by the makers of the others. Krishna would accept as his pillow the lap of his most intimate friend, Srimati Radharani's brother. His name? Sridham. And last but not least, some devotees in different parts of the world, Vaishnavas, they like reciting Vishnu Sahasranam. And Baladev Vidyabhusan wrote a commentary on Vishnu Sahasranam. And we're reading from Vishnu Sahasranam, text 80. So here's some of the names. Lord Krishna's transcendental glories are chanted in all the Vedic literatures, Udirna. And he always affectionately observes all his devotees, Sarvatash Chakshushuhu. He is completely submissive to his devotees, Anisha. And he always remains with the devotees, never leaving their association, Shashvatastira. He takes a nap, resting in the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, Bhushaya. There's a nice godbrother Prabhupada named Bhushaya. He was the president of the Bhaktivedanta, the temple in Detroit for a number of years. His wife was Lekar Shravanti, the daughter of Walter Reuther. Bhushaya, nice friend. And he is nicely decorated with flowers and other ornaments. Bhushana. He fulfills the desires of his devotees, Bhuti. And when a Krura was about to take him from Vrindavan to Mathura, he tried to console the lamenting gopis by vowing to quickly return to Vrindavan, Ashoka. By sending his messenger Uddhava to Vrindavan, he relieved the sufferings of his father Nanda, his mother Yashoda, and the other Brajbasis, Shoka Nashana. And there's a note that Baladev Vidyabhusan explains the name Bhushaya by quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10, 15, 16. That is, when Krishna would feel tired and fatigued, he would sometimes take shelter at the root of a big tree or the lap of a cowherd boy and lie down with the boy or root as his pillow. to be to be followers of the six Goswamis, we like to hear from them. And when we hear from them, we can experience to a degree what their absorption is. I mean, at least we can get a direction, what they're absorbed in. And what they're doing, in simple terms, is they're just relishing topics of Krishna. It's, I remember when I first went to Vrindavan. When was that? Long time ago. 1974. Guru Das was guiding us. And it was the Kartik. No, it wasn't Kartik. It was the Gaur Purnima after the Kartik that Prabhupada had taken the devotees to Vrindavan. You know, that celebrated, he spent a whole month of Kartik in Vrindavan and took the devotees to different places here and there. And then every morning and evening gave classes in the backside of Radha Damodar temple. You know about that, right? If you don't know about it, you should find out about it. It's really nice. So it's a celebrated, classes in nectar devotion. This is very early in the Hare Krishna movement, because nectar devotion was published in 1970. So this is 74. So Prabhupada was giving, it was, a topic to understand Rupa Goswami's teachings on the science of bhakti. So it's a celebrated series, worth listening to, more than once. And so that was 1973, because this was 1974. It was the first Mayapur Vrindavan festival. Anyway, so Guru Das was taking us to different places. And one of the places, of course, he took us to was the Radha Damodar temple. He showed us Prabhupada's rooms. He showed us where Prabhupada sat when he was speaking nectar devotion every evening. You can hear the sounds of the birds in the background during the recordings. And what it looks like today is not what it looked like then. I mean, so many things are different today than then. But one of the things that I remember very clearly, today people still circumambulate around the altar, the deities, with the right side and go around, and where all the samadhis are, when you're looking at the deities, they're over on the left side. And then they walk around that area and then behind. But behind, at that time, 1974, Gaur Purnima time, there was like a stone slab, and underneath the stone slab was a cool area, because it gets really hot in Vrindavan in the summer. So Prabhupada told them, so Guru Das told us, that the Goswamis would come together at Radha Damodar, because it was centrally located, where Gopal Bhatta was, and where each of the Goswamis were situated. Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, they would come together at Radha Damodar. And in the summer months, they would go underneath that stone slab because it was cool. And they would discuss Krishna Katha together. Now there's no stone slab like that anymore. It's just a parikram path. So many things externally have changed, but something that they regularly did. We see paintings of their coming together and discussing topics, but it was their loving exchange with one another, with Krishna at the center. Too bad they didn't have some recorders like we have to take recordings and of their talks. So instead, they wrote. And they, what their writings, we're just reading their writings. They're not sitting in the room with us, reading out the writings or just speaking or something like that. But if your heart is open, that they're just pouring the nectar into the heart and softening the heart and giving us different perspectives and realizations of, Shukadev Goswami's words, and they're taking the Sanskrit of Shukadev Goswami's words and holding them up and sharing them with one another and putting it all together and, tasting the nectar of Krishna, just like this one pastime. Krishna taken, and we spent, 40 minutes hearing about this one little thing. They're lying down, and he's not tired. It's a pastime. Perspiration. It's a pastime. We know from Ishopanishad, he has no veins. Where's perspiration? As for people that have bodies with pores, and there's water inside the body, and it comes out when it's hot. So it's just pastime. It's just pastime. And in various ways, he's giving his kindness, because the opportunity for service is a kindness. We may take it in different ways. An opportunity, we may take it as a chore, we may take it as a duty, we may take it begrudgingly, we may take it joyfully. But this is loving exchange with the personality of Godhead, and how fortunate. How fortunate. From chapter 12, I mentioned this, we'll say it again. Krita Punya Punja. Those of you that have heard Prabhupada's lectures, you know that phrase. Krita Punya Punja. It's an expression by Shukadev Goswami when he was describing when they were just 3 and 4 years old, how they would engage with one another. It's 2 verses together, and similarly, some people realize him this way, that way, the other way, but the cowherd boys, they're just playing with him. What pious activities have they accumulated to have that opportunity? What qualification do you associate? Not by pious activities. It's not by material piety. Not by philanthropy and opening schools and hospitals. It's the spiritual piety. There's material, there's spiritual, and there's devotional. This is a teaching given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Material piety has its classics. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Planting trees by the side of the road and digging wells. Classic acts of piety. So he calls it Sukriti. Moksha Sukriti is studying Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishads and chanting Om. Moksha Sukriti. And Bhakti Sukriti that's another piety. That's what the cowherd boys did. And that's just serving and serving and serving and serving and serving, with meditation upon attaining the stage of being in Krishna's association. I just came across something today which I'll share with you and end with this. Can you find that sloka again? The one that you... Yes. There's a phrase that Baladev Vidyabhusan includes in his Prameya Ratnavali. His Prameya Ratnavali is a list of the essential teachings of the Vedas. Prameya. There's Pramana, that's the Vedas, and Prameya is what you learn. Yeah. what you learn from what is to be known. The pramana is the evidence, and prameya is what is to be known by the evidence. And Ratnavali. So in that summary, and there's several other places where Bhakti Siddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and our acharyas comment on the same, it's slightly different Sanskrit than what Baladev has written. Yadrashi bhavana samshaye, yadashe bhavana samye siddhir bhavati tadrashi. The degree to which one engages in devotional activities in this world determines his status in the next world. The extent to which one is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead determines the degree of his spiritual perfection. So they didn't just do devotional service, that kind of bhakti sukriti. They were also meditating on becoming Krishna's dear friend. In in Rupa Goswami's language, that's Raganuga Bhakti. You perform your prescribed duty, and you also always think of Krishna, and you think of Krishna in a particular way, and that is what you will attain. And when Rupa Goswami describes this, one example I came across just today, he writes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he doesn't give the scripture reference, he just says, in the scriptures it is said that there was a elderly, aged carpenter. So he wasn't a brahmana. What's the occupation of a carpenter? It's a shudra, right? So an elderly carpenter had a deity, and he worshipped the deity as his son. And that carpenter attained the position of Krishna's father. And the explanation given by the commentators is he took birth in Vrindavan, and during that 1 year that Krishna was manifested of each of the cowherd boys, he had Krishna as his son. So we're practicing bhakti. We're doing sadhana bhakti. And our practice of sadhana bhakti not only needs that we're, chant 16 rounds attentively and all those things. That's a challenge for some. And follow the other vidhis, etc. But then there's this other understanding that says, what's your contemplation while you're doing those things? What's your relationship with Krishna? And most of the time, we're just too busy. And even when we're chanting, the mind is, you know what the mind does when we're chanting? It's not on chanting. It's on problem solving and planning your day and all those other things that the mind goes to. But to achieve the gift that Lord Chaitanya wanted to give, we have to fix our mind on Krishna. You have to fix your mind on Krishna. And the way to fix your mind on Krishna, of course, is in service. And service has different moods. And wherever that mood is, it's specific. Whatever you're contemplating while you're doing your sadhana, that's what you're going to attain. It's not just how many lifetimes have these cowherd boys done bhakti sukriti. They had a meditation, just like this Rupa Goswami's example of the ancient carpenter or aged carpenter. He had a very specific mood, and Krishna reciprocates with that mood. You be steady in your devotional practices. That's important. It's necessary. It's what we're striving for. And then as that becomes fixed, this other is also to enter into Krishna's pastimes with him. It's said, you've heard this before, it's said that before you go back to Godhead, what else? There's a stopover. The stopover is you take birth somewhere where Krishna is performing his eternal pastimes, his Bhoma Lila, and you get trained by the Nitya Siddha devotees how to do your services. You've heard that before? Well, now you've heard it, at least if you haven't heard it before. It's not directly back to Godhead, but one takes birth like this aged Brahmin. He wanted to become the father of Krishna, but Krishna doesn't have a father, or at least Nanda and Jasoda, they're already his fathers. The position is filled. But Krishna reciprocates with those that have parental affection in this Leela, because he's loving. He's very kind. And, it looked like difficulty. Brahma came and kidnapped the calves and cowherd boys. That's bad. I mean, that's criminal. But for a whole year, he was purposeful. So Krishna reciprocates. But what's your contemplation? If your contemplation is spaced out, Krishna will reciprocate. Don't be like that, because when you're anyway, the teaching, and then go beyond the teaching into the practice. You're with Krishna. You're calling Krishna, and he comes. So don't be inattentive when you invite someone. Here we are, so many persons assembled in your home out of invitation. When, we take care of our guests and we reciprocate with them as best we can. But Krishna can unlimitedly manifest himself into so many Krishnas and lie in so many beds, etc. There's no limit. Is there a limit? If there was a limit, then he's not God. If there's no limit, there's no limit. And his kindness, so we were hearing 2 evenings ago, because yesterday was with the Chinese devotees. So, but the ways in which Krishna reciprocates is unlimited, and the categories of living entities, there's categories, and there are subsets and subdivisions, and it's head spinning to hear our acharyas describe those so many divisions. And Krishna is all knowing, and he reciprocates perfectly. So what's yours? And we're meant to discover it and awaken it and have it stimulated. And that's why hearing these descriptions of Krishna's activities, according to Rupa Goswami, they're stimulations of ecstatic love. Not only they're interesting and they're attractive, they're interesting and attractive, but they're stimulating ecstatic love on a deeper level. Whatever is our eternal, dormant, loving relationship with Krishna, which we've forgotten, it's being stimulated and awakened. Supposing you're not a cowherd boy, supposing you're something else or something else. Hearing about the cowherd boys is stimulating out of loving attraction for Krishna. How wonderful is Krishna? The gopis meditate on what Krishna does with the cowherd boys. Even when he's out in the pastures with the cat, they know exactly what he's doing. They can report to Mother Jasoda what he's doing right now. They can experience it. Don't worry, Mother Jasoda, he's late. But they just took a bath in the river Jamuna, and now they're resting by the side of the river banks. And on the way back, the demigods came to pay their respects, because it's the end of the day, and Krishna's getting the blessings of the demigods. So don't worry. He'll come back all blessed. He'll be here shortly. They know all of what's going on, even when they're not there. They're not super soul, but they have this intense love. So they appreciate the loving exchange that Krishna has with the river Jamuna and the cowherd boys and on and on and on. It's all stimulations of ecstatic love. That's and to understand Krishna in depth, in detail, that's what our acharyas are doing. They're relishing these topics, sharing with one another, sharing with us. We're sitting at their feet, trying to hear how they're enjoying the appreciations and the details and the innuendos and the subtleties and how Krishna is thinking, well, this pastime and that pastime. How confidential can you get? Who knows what Krishna is thinking? The Goswamis know. How do they know? Because they're intimately associated with him. They know. At least, we have that faith. I have that faith. And get their association. You'll find all about Krishna. How lovable is he? How kind is he? How gentle is he? How funny is he? How loving is he? It makes love of God something far more palpable and realistic than what I grew up with, anyways. So let's see if there's some discussion. We have a little portable microphone. And if you want to discuss some topic, we'll hand you the microphone.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you again so much for such wonderful lecture. And I want to apologize. I was a little bit late, so please excuse me for that. How you explained, like how the cowherd boys would make a bed out of twigs for Krishna and Krishna
and buds and so forth.
But the twigs was something like, and Krishna would reciprocate that love and affection and would actually lay on it, which is, like you think about laying on even if we step on a twig, it hurts. But again,
they probably got soft ones. They're real connoisseurs of how to make things nice for Krishna. Don't worry about the twigs.
So me personally, because I think it's the big message here I got was it's the affection or the mode that you want to serve Krishna, not necessarily, like perfection. Yes. So a lot of times, like myself, personal sharing is in that thought of doing perfect, I not end up doing those things. So thank you so much for that. Like that's a good reminder. For doing that.
Okay. Well, and there's so many ways by which something that we read. I read. Where did I read it? Maybe it's preparing for tomorrow's class. There's a section from the Gopi Gita, chapter 33, where the gopis, something we read 2 days ago, is the gopis have a kind of love like the queens have. They have a lover beloved mood, but they have dasya rasa and the gopis have sakya rasa mixed with the beloved mood. I forget the Sanskrit term. No, you picked up on that term. Kantabhav. Yeah, my beloved. Mm-hmm. But so the gopis, this is just a detail, just because you're appreciating the twigs. The gopis took their garment that normally would cover their head, and they laid the garment down for Krishna to lie on, so it was soft. And Krishna was, very pleased with this. Perfect, more perfect, most perfect. And Krishna's recipient, it's the love with which something it is offered, not otherwise. You know that one.
I had one more thing.
Sure.
You did mention that Krishna has a contradictory quality.
Yes.
Could you please elaborate?
Materially speaking, contradictory. Like, here, there's some obvious ones. He's inside everything, and out. This is chapter 9, the first few verses. Chapter 9. He's inside everything and is outside everything, simultaneously. He's bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest, simultaneously. He can overcome all the others running, but Mother Yasoda captured him. And so on. So, if you're interested, you probably are interested. You can find out. I'll do a little research. If you have trouble finding out, let me know. And in Bhakti Sandarbha, there's a whole section where it's the harmonizer of opposites. In the Nrishinga Tapani Upanishad, there's verses where he says, Bahir Nrishingo Hridaye Nrishingo, that we know that one. But it's a whole series of he's this and he's not this. He's this and he's not, he's that, he's not that. He's the other thing and he's not the other thing. So Jiva Goswami takes those verses and then explains in detail, Jiva Goswami-esque kind of detail, how it's correct. He's unborn, yet he takes birth. And he explains it so wonderfully. So within him is the reconciliation or the harmonizing of all apparent contradictions. But within him, there's no contradiction.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for the wonderful session and lecture. And, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. One of the things which you mentioned about chanting, that we are calling God's name and there is contemplation that we need to think about, or
yes,
what is the right thing to think about? What should we do while chanting?
Well, it depends on your spiritual trajectory, where you are in your spiritual trajectory. And that's what you contemplate on. And a starting point, it depends on where you are. The starting point depends on where you are. Of late, I've been circulating a little verse which I sent to Sundarananda, which he can send to everybody here if he didn't send it already. It was to the Baltimore congregation, but I don't know who you can send it to here to circulate here. Okay, so all your guests, and you'll circulate to your guests. It's very simple. The mind situated in the mantra situated in the mind. That's the first two lines. When there is a seamless connection between the two, this is ideal chanting. Very simple. How to do it. But if you meditate, so where to begin? You meditate on where the mind should be with the mantra, situated in the mantra. And where should the mantra be? Situated in the mind. So it's a meditation. It's not besides the sound. Each of us in different stages have different strengths, give some things that give us strength to be attentive instead of distracted. I'll share two other things that for me of late have been very significant. One of them I shared at length in three different parts about the key word is indifference. There's Sanskrit terms for it, but indifference toward Krishna. If you're chanting with indifference toward Krishna, it's offense. But tendency is to be indifferent towards Krishna. That precedes our material experience. Because the material experience is, where does the mind go when it's distracted? It goes to sense objects or situations or, am I enjoying mood? That's Krishna's meant to be the enjoyer. Indifference is the preliminary, and then it leads to going away from Krishna. But it's, the beginning is indifference, even when you're chanting. So how to overcome that is a topic that I spoke about at this recent 4th of July event in Chicago, Festival of the Holy Name. And Sundarananda, you can also let our host know how to find that link and listen to the recordings specifically about indifference. So when chanting, it's all about your relationship with Krishna, being revived through chanting, and don't be indifferent toward Krishna. But there's a personal relationship with Krishna. So it's expanded in that Festival of the Holy Name seminar. And here's another. I give you many. But another is something that I really appreciate and find to be very effective. Bhaktisiddhanta writes, it is not humanly possible to understand and realize that Krishna and Krishna's name are not different. We can accept it conceptually or in principle, no problem. Abhinatvam nama namino, etc. There are different ways of saying it in Sanskrit. Nama and nami are the same. Vacha and vachak are the same. So, how to realize it? He said it's not possible by our human intellect. Here's how it's possible. When the mind is situated in the mantra, and the mantra is situated in the mind. But how is that? He gives the how to. You ready? Hearing. He said the mind thinks I'm in charge. But when there's hearing, the ear is in charge. Because the mind then becomes subservient to the ear. And he uses the phrase, there's no longer a quibble. Who's in charge? But if the ear is not in charge, the mind's in charge. And the mind goes all over the place. That's the restless mind. Chanchala himana Krishna. So you want to conquer the restless mind? Hear. And if you, as to the degree that you're hearing, the mind is conquered. Or in Rupa Goswami's language, the mind becomes stunned and the senses become inert. Samadhi. By hearing, by the ear. The ear conquers the mind. And if you're not there, the mind rules. And you're not hearing. And you're not with Krishna because the mind is wherever it's going. And you have no control over it. You can try, and you bring it back, and there it goes again, and there it goes again. The ear conquers the mind. The ear conquers the mind. If the ear doesn't conquer the mind, then the mind conquers everything else. Your whole life goes wherever the mind goes. Literally, the soul goes where the mind goes. And whatever you're attached to, that's where you go. And while you're chanting at the end of life, and everything in between, it's real serious business. Being controlled by the mind or controlling the mind. The ear conquers the mind. And if it takes sustained effort, not just like a nice thought, and as soon as that nice thought is over, the mind is somewhere else again. We all have that experience. I have that experience. I'm sure everyone else does. So where do you begin? What's your question? Ear conquers the mind. And get on the other side of indifference. At least yearn to get on the other side of indifference. We have a lot of Vidvans here. I'm expecting some nice discussion. Huh? Something online? Okay, we'll go online.
First is from Snehavali. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, our rasa with Krishna will be revealed to us in our mature stage of bhakti.
Yes.
We should not imitate the bhava of the Raganuga Bhaktas. If I heard correctly, you mentioned that we should meditate on developing our rasa with Krishna.
Well,
Could you please elaborate?
You didn't hear correctly. Now, there's different schools. School A and School B. School A says we have our eternal relationship with Krishna, and it's just reawakening it. There's another school that says that by association with elevated souls, one develops qualities and likeness of that elevated soul. And they're not, mutually contradictory, but they're different schools of thinking. So what I didn't say is, our business is contemplating and cultivating our rasa. There is a natural attraction that arises, and followers of Rupa Goswami are followers of Lord Chaitanya, and followers of Lord Chaitanya are encouraged by Braja Prem. Now, they're members of ISKCON, very wonderful, staunch followers in ISKCON, where just like this nice painting of Ram, Lakshman, and Sita and Hanuman. And, on Saturday I'm being asked to speak about something with, I have some choices on the menu, but something to do with Ram. There are Ram Bhaktas and Nrsimha Bhaktas, et cetera, who are, here's a nice example. Sridhar Swami, the commentator that Lord Chaitanya accepted, who was chronologically lived before Lord Chaitanya, he was a Nrsimha Bhakta. And how much does he understand about Bhagavatam? Everything. But he's a Nrsimha Bhakta. So now, I'm not going to say, I'm a believer in policy A or perspective A or perspective B. But what we are encouraged to do is receive the fullness of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And the fullness of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, Snehavali, read Brihad Bhagavatamrita along with all the other million things that you're reading, and you'll find that that's the culmination of the teaching of the Bhagavatam. It inspires us, even from Canto 1, to become attracted to the love of the residents of Vrindavan. And then what to speak of as you go along. So that's a starting point. And even those that are the Shringa Bhaktas, they, like Sridhar Swami or others, I mean, I don't know, Indradumna Maharaj is in a Shringa Bhakta. Boy, does he love pastimes of Krishna and Vrindavan. It's not like, they're mutually exclusive. So, I don't want to go into this topic too much because it's, it's like it's in outer space for many devotees. Just getting up in the morning and completing sadhana nicely, and that's the platform that we need to be. But as bhakti awakens and matures, eagerness to receive the fullness of Lord Chaitanya's mercy is to awaken, and the fullness is certainly Braja Prema. And how that manifests is it'll be bestowed upon us. That's how it'll manifest. And we'll understand how it will manifest better as we get closer. Let's leave it at that. But it is Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and it is explicit. It's explicit in Chaitanya Charitamrita that without that cultivation, we won't attain Goloka Vrindavan. We won't attain Braja Prem. Without that following of the Ragatmika Bhaktas. It's in our teaching. It's not excluded from our teaching. It's included in our teaching. And it is required when our stage of bhakti becomes sufficiently mature, but it's an important stage to know when you get on the train, where's the train going? That's a phrase that I have developed from visiting in China. Man. I mean, I didn't grow up in New York City, but I spent so many years in New York City. And going to Grand Central Station, which is a zoo, is nothing compared to the train stations in China. And it's not just Beijing, any city. It's like there's a zillion people and they're going, I don't speak Chinese. It's like zillion people zooming around. And you got to know where you want to go, which track to go to, and get on the train. You got to know where you're going. Or you just don't just go to a train station. You have to have somebody speak the language. So same, where's this train going? Where's the Lord Chaitanya gift that he's giving to us? It's a one-way ticket to Krishna Loka, to be with Krishna in Vrindavan. And there's a path to follow, and it's a very, very clear path. Read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's there. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami very nicely encapsulates it. And it's from the teachings of Rupa Goswami and our acharyas, etc. So it's a stage of bhakti that when you get on the train, that's where the train is going. And that's a stage of bhakti that, you should be prepared for. At least, don't be surprised when it comes, because it's meant to take us there. Next.
Next is from Radha Ballava Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. In the class today, we heard about unlimited loving reciprocations by the Lord. So such loving reciprocations are experienced only by pure devotees or even at practicing stage?
Oh, yeah. When you go on book distribution and you give somebody a book, or you're somewhere distributing prasadam. I know some people, they're just immersed in prasadam distribution. And those are people that get prasadam, they're getting mercy. That's what prasadam means. And the persons that are absorbed in prasadam distribution, they know what it means. The people that are receiving it, they may not know what it means. But the persons who are distributing prasadam, they know. And there's a feeling that goes with it. And it's a nice feeling. It's a devotional feeling. You're giving people a beginning. And then they start to like prasadam and they make more advancement.
Next is from Amara. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, there are some days where there's a feeling of softening of heart and a feeling of gratitude. But sometimes the meditation on lotus feet of Krishna and hearing the sound of Mahamantra can also become like in an auto mode. Although we are trying to pay attention, but yet it is just a neutral feeling. So 2 questions. How do the feelings change, although nothing external has changed? And should we just continue and not overthink about such feelings?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Amara, you overthink these things. And change doesn't come by overthinking. It doesn't come by underthinking either. It comes by bhakti. The process is a bhakti process. And just try to situate your heart gradually. Our hearts are covered and so forth and so on. Just continue. But then, yes, definitely don't overthink. And, when the first part is just a description, one of many, of unsteady bhakti, anishtata bhakti. And, if you want to get an anatomy of unsteady bhakti, you can read Madhurya Kandambani, and you'll start identifying, oh, that's me, and that's me, and that's me, and that's me, and that's me. And then you get overthinking about, oh, I'm all those things. What am I going to do? You go back to the other question, the other thought. You follow the instructions and don't overthink it. She has a certain standard question she asks and just rephrases it n number of different ways. And she'd be smiling right now if she heard me say that.
Next question is from Sundari. How do we fuel the sustained effort of consistently picking the ear to be in control instead of the mind?
Abhyasa yoga yuktena cetasa nanyagami. No, and associate with those that have that spirit. How to. Sadhu Sangha is the answer for all how-to questions. End of story. Anything else in the room? We have something over here.
2 days ago, after your session was done, when we were having prasadam, the question was brought up, talking about these love for Krishna and these loving exchanges. It's on a very high platform.
Yes.
So I'm at a very low level, and I can only think in terms of prescribed duties. So because it's recommended in the Vedic scriptures. So is that okay just to live my life performing the prescribed duties?
No.
Was the question.
I mean, it's if that's again this question of where do we begin, and it depends on where your trajectory. But if that's where you are in your trajectory, it's not like that's okay. That's okay, and that's not all. What else? Always think of me. Mama nusmara yujyacha. Perform your prescribed duty and always think of me. Well, I'm really good. I'm much better at the prescribed duty thing than the thinking of Krishna part. It stays on the material platform if you're not thinking of the Krishna part. So you do something so that you can think of Krishna, and part of our devotional practice is to awaken that. It's the chanting and the reading, and hearing and discussing and worshiping and and all the sadhana bhakti activities along with prescribed duties. So is your question, is it okay? It's okay, but it's not sufficient. It'll stay on the material platform unless you, and always think of me, and strive. You may not be there yet. That's okay. Who's there? Strive. From whatever your position is, you strive. And if you need some advice on how to strive, you go to somebody who can guide you. And you know what's suitable for me, the next step of striving. But one of the things that's universal for everybody, at least who are followers of Prabhupada, is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and the qualitative way with which you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So start there, and then you're reading groups and you study, and so that's also thinking of Krishna. And it helps to cleanse and awaken remembrance of Krishna. Okay, looks like we're done. Thank you very much, Srila Prabhupada. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. That's why we have online people that want to hear your voice.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I have a few very basic questions, not so much into philosophy, just basic when I practice. I have two girls. Sometimes they don't want to observe Ekadashi when they're not at home. They complain about Ekadashi. That is my concern.
What to do?
Yeah, what to do with that?
Smile.
Don't
You're good at smile. You have a nice smile. Don't force. Don't push. You can explain. You can encourage. You can provide them nice prasadam, and you smile.
Okay.
Set a good example. You make an incubation chamber where their bhakti can grow, and that's what you can do as a mom. And it depends on what their age is too. The older one, you've had, it's what you've done your part. She's going to do what she's going to do. You can encourage and smile, and you have not a judging kind of dialogue, but a subjective kind of dialogue. Do you understand? What's the obstacle? How do you feel about all of those affective kinds of discussions? And if because intelligence, the older one, intelligence is strong to do what she's doing. So if intelligence can guide the mind and can guide the senses. So let me have a discussion where you're not like picking, or just exploring and educating. There are some reasons. So give some thought about what the reasons are. And is it really is it really uncomfortable? Whatever. You're a mom and you know how to talk to your daughter. I don't need to tell you how to talk to your daughter, but just exploring and find out where the thing is. Is it lazy? Is it I don't care? What's the thing? Because if the intelligence can say, although I'm lazy and I don't care, this is important. And it's not just, it can be important because it's important to you, but it's her relationship with Krishna, and that's important. And so, what's depending upon, if the intelligence can be guided towards the higher path, that's good. Then even when you're not around, they'll do. And otherwise they'll do only when you're around.
Yeah.
And then maybe. Okay?
One quick thing too, Maharaji. So when I chant sometimes, if I chant in the morning, it's good. I finish my rounds. Sometimes I leave it to the evening if I'm busy. Then I have to carry my rounds to the next day. I do it before eating, but I don't feel good. But that shouldn't be, that's not correct, right?
It's the quality is less and you feel it. not only feel guilty, but you just don't feel the spiritual charge in the same way. So it's a few recommendations, real simple ones, real simple. Plan A, Plan B. If circumstances are such that it's not happening in the morning because this circumstance, then you go to Plan B. But as soon as that, whatever that circumstance is, the cloud and the storm, etc., is over, you're back to Plan A the very next day. And then another key is have a cutoff time where you stop, so that you can wind down, take rest, and chant in the morning. And when you do that in a consistent manner, the Plan A consistent manner, anything that you're going to do at night will be done in a fraction of the time in the morning after you've done your chanting. You follow? Because the mind is clearer, the intelligence is stronger. It's like knife through a soft butter compared to at night. So, and a third is just minimize time-wasting things, especially at night. And one of the best ways to do that is anticipating the morning. But this is a Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaching, and it works. In the evening, you do a quick review, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, quick review, what went well, what didn't go so well, what can I do better? Let me anticipate my chanting japa in the morning. And it can take 3 minutes. You can take, 3 hours, but it can take 3, if you just do it, if you're good at time management, it can happen very quickly. You write some things down if you want. But the focus on chanting, and when you focus on chanting before taking rest, you wake up thinking chanting. If you take rest thinking of a problem solving, you wake up thinking of the problem, or a mind that's not focused. So what you do before you take rest and the time that you take rest, it's important for strong, good morning sadhana. And you do that consistently for years. Take it from me, I've done it. It gives strength. And it gives you strength beyond calamity. Even when calamity comes, you're still fixed. And calamity happens. But you stay fixed. And the spirit, the bala, the spiritual strength comes from Balaram. And that was in this Festival of the Holy Name talk also. Because it's coming up in this chapter 15, Balaram killing Dhenukasura. Okay?
So pray to Lord Balaram for
strength. And because according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Balaram, the Dhenuka represents bad intelligence, a donkey. And the good intelligence directs the mind. Bad intelligence is where all other bad things come, envy, etc. Balaram will take care of it. Trust in Balaram. He'll give strength. If you don't reach out to him, he won't interfere. But if you reach out to him, he'll give you strength.
Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Guaranteed. He's very, very strong. He's the source of all spiritual strength. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.